Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are fortunate enough to have ourselves yet another Sinn watch. This one is the 240St GZ, and it is a bit of a cool watch, and it's got a very distinctive look going on there. It's the first time really I've ever actually come across this watch. I've never handled one before, and it is surprisingly, well, not surprisingly what we're saying, it feels great, feels really good on the wrist, I think, and it's a little bit different. Let's face it, it doesn't look like your regular style watches, you know, regular case design, I should say, with this design they've got going on here and the dual crown layout. It is something just that little bit different, and I am a sucker for something a little bit different, let alone being a Sinn watch. So, but before I get too far into review, I've got to say a massive thank you to Ryan and the team over at Francis Gaye of Coventry for allowing me to review this watch. They never cease to surprise me with just how much stock they actually have. If you're in the Midlands area, I'd strongly recommend going in, popping in. If you're further afield, check out their website. I will leave a link in the description below. So let's talk sizes first of all. It is a 43mm case size. The thickness is only 10.8mm. The lug to lug, the longest part of the case, is 45mm, but it does actually measure a little bit longer than that due to the bracelet coming out like this. But as you can tell, it angles down in such a way that doesn't really come into play because it fits the wrist so well, this one. The actual bracelet size on this, so the the lug size on this watch is 22mm, but the bracelet on this does sort of like flare out into the body of the watch. So subsequently, the point across here is more like 25mm. But if you're not a bracelet fan, don't worry, as you can fit a leather strap in there. Don't worry about it at all if you so desire. So anyway, let's look at that dial. The dial is, let's face it, it's a simple layout, but it's done really well. So we've got the lovely kind of fine print of the minute track going around on this dial. I would say, is it kind of like a dark blue, or is that a black? It's more a black dial, I would say, with printed hour and minute markers on there. So you have this really cool minute track going around here, very reminiscent of the 104 models. You do have the made in Germany down at the bottom there. Now the hands, syringe style hand here, both the hour and minute hand and hour track and up here is fully loomed, and to be fair, there's quite a decent amount of loom on this watch, so you'll have no problem reading this all through the night. Now the second hand, as you can see, has got this rather funky orange going on there, which does make a nice contrast against the back of the dial here. So overall, I think it's great. You've got a day-date complication here. Now let me just move this out of the way because I want to show you one thing here, because I know some people do get a bit worried. Let me just change this round here, because you shouldn't actually manipulate the date when the hour hands are, you know, the hour between sort of like a 10 and 2 in the morning, or even a little bit later than that. Now the date wheel, now you might have seen it earlier, but you've obviously got your normal days going on there, but you can have it in either German or English, so it is bilingual. Some people can be put off, I know, if it's German only, but I personally don't have a problem with that. My limited German, I can get away with that just about. So anyway, but as we go past that, then we have this internal dial going on here, and that is operated by this crown at the top. Now as you can see, I can turn this and it is absolutely, it feels like there's zero play between one way or the other. Now the crown, it's the bezel markings are a little bit unusual on this one. At first when I briefly looked at it, I thought it was a compass bezel, but no, it isn't. This one is actually a Tidal bezel. Now how you operate it is, when you do know it's high tide, you can actually manually switch that round. So if it's high tide, at this point you can actually, you know, locate it there, and then it gives you an idea of high and low tides. I would love to say I'm an expert on tidal bezels, but honestly I'm not, so I'm not going to rave on about it too much. Now some people might say, well, you've got a crown to operate this, you have to be really careful when it is wet. So if you're near a beach and you're actually recording Tidal bits, you should have a screwed down version of this. Now, on most watches, I would say this is true, but on Sinn watches, well, this one in particular, the crown system on this has what they call the D3 system. So it is, you can still operate them when the watch is wet. Water will not ingress in the watch like it would on a normal watch. So you can actually operate these. Now, as we look from the side here, we have a flat sapphire crystal. It does have AR on both sides of the crystal. That's why you get a pretty decent amount of anti-reflection there going onto the dial. The actual case itself, I'm not quite sure if you call it like a tonneau style case, but you do have this lovely angle work going on here and again here and on the sides. But it is all bead blasted finish. Now the bead blasting, technically you can say it slightly hardens the metal as you bead blast it, because it's the equivalent of work hardening something, but also most importantly it stops reflection. So that's why they actually bead blast, you know, the outer sides of the case, and it is a bit distinctive for Sinn tool watches. Now as we come around here, I say we have two signed crowns. The lower crown here is a non-screwed down crown, but you still get 100 meters of water resistancy with this watch, and I say you don't have to worry about accidentally knocking the crown or turning it due to that D3 system we have in place. Now as we come round to the back, we've got a solid case back on there. Now underneath there, Sinn have fitted the top grade SW220 -1 movement. Now it's a solid workhorse movement. I put this on the time grapher earlier, and I think it was coming out around about 4.5 seconds plus in the position I had it in, which is probably about as high as I've ever seen a Sinn on the time grapher. Do remember, these are normally, Sinn watches are pretty well within chronometer specs, no problem. The movement has a 26 joule movement, 26 joules, and the power reserve is a minimum of 38, normally around about 42 hours, give or take. The bracelet on this is their classic H-link. Now this is an absolute solid bracelet. It even comes with hex keys or Allen keys depending on where you are in the world, and it will normally come with two Allen keys, two keys for this, and some Loctite, so you can make sure it is solid. Now the bracelet, the clasp on this watch is their standard fold over type. Now some people dislike this clasp, and I really cannot understand why, because the simple fact is it's solid, it works. You've got a dive link extension there, 3 levels of micro adjustment. Now I know some harp on we need to have on the fly micro adjustment. How often do you use that? I don't know, I don't really. So it works really well, machine centered there, clicks in nicely, that would click, but we got all the protection going on out there. Let me quickly put it on my wrist so you can see how it looks. A quick wrist check. I'm wearing a Rolex Batman, the first gen, and Bob still has on that rather gorgeous Seamaster 300 Air. It is a lovely looking watch, and that belongs to one of my subscribers, Niall. If you'd like me to review one of your watches and you're around the Midlands area, please let me know and we'll sort something out. So let's put this on my wrist and we'll see how it looks. Now, as I said, this watch is only 10.8 millimeters thick. Now, that's not too thick at all. I personally think it looks a stunning watch, and you can see how low it sits on the wrist. It really does a good job of hiding its proportions, not that they're large in the first place. Got to apologise for having to re-record this bit of audio, as for some reason it didn't make it onto the video. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Most importantly though, stay safe out there. All the best, guys. Bye.